already. We have, since we're here in the region and since we wanted to highlight the positive and the negative developments regarding anti-Semitism and hate speech, if you allow me, in general, in the countries of former Yugoslavia, including also Romania, Bulgaria, my own home country, Greece. We have the pleasure to present a report, I would say, that showcases the actual situation about anti-Semitism in the region. Let me just, before giving the floor to the person who is going to present it, our dear friend Tomer Aldoubi, who is the founder and executive director of Fighting Online Anti-Semitism, so the most appropriate person to speak about anti-Semitism online, on social networks primarily. Allow me to say why I believe that the region lies ahead of many other European states when it comes to combating anti-Semitism. I mentioned it already. It's not accidental that Croatia holds the EJA chairmanship this year. It's not accidental, and you hear about it in the afternoon session, that Croatian universities lead the way in adopting the EJA principles on their campuses, starting from Split, Zagreb, and hopefully Osijek very soon to follow. It's not accidental that the Croatian government also undertook some vital steps towards dealing with the past. You know that the country has a controversial past, as almost every country in the region. All these show that things are changing in Croatia, maybe not in the pace that we would hope for, but they do change. Nevertheless, I also mentioned that we have a lot of things to discuss, that needs to be done, the things that need to be done, problems to be tackled, solutions to be found. And this report that Tomer is going to present is food for thought for the discussion I'm going to have later on with 3 members of national parliaments from Greece, from Serbia, and from Bulgaria. Having said that, I would like to kindly call Tomer on the podium, on the stage, to present the report, and then we will continue with the panel discussion. Tomer?
Good morning, dear members of Parliament, ambassadors, and dear guests. It's a pleasure to speak with you today as the founder of Fighting Online Anti-Semitism, all the way from Israel. In these challenging times, FOA, staff and volunteers wish to extend our gratitude to the Israeli forces, our sincere condolences to the families of the victims, and of course prayers for the swift recovery of the injured. I would like to thank the European Jewish Association for organizing this important conference and for collaborating with the FOA for a very unique and first of its kind report of online anti-Semitism in Southeast Europe. FOA is a non-profit organization established in 2020 with the main goal to combat and report and remove anti-Semitic content on various social media platforms. Recently, since the war has begun, we have launched an international community of volunteers, and just in 4 days, 2,000 people have joined us, and I also recommend you to join the community. It's a WhatsApp community groups of different languages, and currently we have Israelis and Israeli supporters from Australia to the United States. Now back to the report, and I will show you the presentation in a few seconds. The report was conducted by a joint team of researchers of the EJA and the FOA and many other volunteers and activists. Some of them are here in the audience as well. A systematic study was conducted between July and September 2023 this year, which reviews the online anti-Semitic discourse that takes place in Southeast European countries, in Croatia, Bulgaria, Romania, Serbia, and Slovenia. The report focuses on social media platforms, mostly on TikTok and Twitter, where anti-Semitic posts were analyzed automatically using an AI system and also manually with the help of the volunteers and activists. Based on a carefully constructed list of 27 keywords and hashtags, our team scanned the online social media platforms in those countries, flagging a total of almost 30,000 content items. To decide whether these content items were anti-Semite, of course, we used the EJA definition, and I would like to end with maybe something that is regarding to Croatian as well. The rise of online anti-Semitism is something that we are all aware of. This is a very serious concerning phenomenon. However, I'm very happy to share with you that Croatia, the host country for this important conference, has recorded the fewest online incidents of anti-Semitism, while most anti-Semitic incidents were found in Bulgaria. So the main findings of the report, there are 5 different findings. Of course, the main conspiracy theory, the main anti-Semitic content was related to conspiracy theory that Jewish communities worldwide wish to control the world. As we are all aware that this is happening also in different other languages. This was the same content we found in Southeast European countries. And besides that, like in other countries, as we are all aware today, Twitter was to found the most anti-Semitic social media platforms. This is the same for English, this is the same for other languages today. We are all aware that Twitter is the leading anti-Semitic platform. Besides that, it's important to say that Romania was a bit different case. In Romania, most of the anti-Semitic platforms were not necessarily Twitter, but TikTok and YouTube. Other countries, Twitter was still the leading anti-Semitic platform. Compared to Western Europe and compared to content that is in English in other countries, most of the anti-Semitic content we found in those 5 countries was not necessarily about the state of Israel. Of course, this was done before the war and things might change up because of the war, but most of the content was regarding classical anti-Semitism and Holocaust denial. Less than 5% of the content was about the state of Israel. This is not like we have discovered in our annual report for 2022, where about 30% of the content was regarding the state of Israel. When you're going to read the report, you will see lots of items, lots of content on TikTok. This does not say that most of the content are anti-Semite. Most of the content against what's on Twitter. And we try to understand why is that, and one of the reasons that many people that use TikTok are, of course, young adults and teenagers. And those people in Croatia and in other countries, they speak English. That's why we can find more content, more anti-Semitic content in English on TikTok in those countries compared to other languages. And another very important reason is that we have a very important collaboration with TikTok, the FOA and so many other NGOs. TikTok removes lots of the anti-Semitic content. Just recently, since the war has begun, we collaborate with TikTok to restore accounts of Israelis and other people that have shared content about Israel. So if your account on TikTok was blocked, please talk with me afterwards, because TikTok helps us to restore the accounts as they also help to remove anti-Semitic content. Here you have the numbers of the anti-Semitic content. So out of the 30,000 links that we have checked, not all of those links were anti-Semite. We used the EJA definition to check, and you can see some of the numbers here on the graph, and as you can see, Twitter was the leading anti-Semitic platform. Most of the content was to be found on Twitter in all of the languages, in all of the countries. Then TikTok and some on YouTube as well. This is very important to say. There is anti-Semitism on Facebook and Instagram. Facebook and Instagram, they are not part of the report because Meta, Facebook and Instagram, they are blocked for automatic search in many, many companies, AI companies. We work with an Israeli company named Zagreb. This is one of the leading IT companies doing scraping of online content. And Facebook and Instagram are blocked by this platform and also by this company and also by other companies. So again, there is anti-Semitic content on those platforms, but they know how to block automatic search doing by other companies. We have tried to make things a bit simple for everybody here in the room or for everybody who's going to read the report, and we used the traffic light, we used a few different colors to make things a bit more simple. So as you can see, the high online anti-Semitism was Bulgaria, with most of the content, especially in Twitter. This was the first country we found most of the anti-Semitic content. With Serbia and Slovenia, it was a medium of online anti-Semitism, and Romania and Croatia were the green one, were the list of online anti-Semitism, and Croatia was, again, the country where we found the list of online anti-Semitic content. We used also the 27 keywords in English, just to compare between English to other languages, and that's why English is also in a medium online anti-Semitism compared to other languages. So I would like to share with you some examples in different languages, some examples of online anti-Semitic content that we have found. I am not going to read the language because I'm not an expert in those languages, but you can see the translation in English. Some of the content was related to the Holocaust, as you can see here on the screen. Some of the content was related to Holocaust conspiracy theories and fake news regarding the Holocaust. This was monitored on Twitter and published before the report was started, a few months before, but this year. Another example of anti-Semitic content, again published on Twitter, was monitored on Twitter and published on Twitter a few months before the report has started. This is again content in Croatian. Regarding Bulgaria, there was, this is also related to the Holocaust, as you can see, talking about the gas chamber and gas in general. This was also monitored on Telegram. We had a few items monitored on Telegram. Again, Telegram is full with anti-Semitic content, but it's very difficult to do the automatic scraping on Telegram. Another Bulgarian content we have discussed also with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Israeli one, to understand why this content was anti-Semite, but this is also part of the other definition. This talks about loyalty of a Jewish politician, allegedly loyal more to the state of Israel rather to his own country. This was monitored on Facebook and published in September, so just recently. Another content we found in Bulgarian on Twitter, and this was in Romania, and this is related to the history of Romania, and we also talked with our volunteers and activists in Romania to understand why this was anti-Semite regarding to the history, and I'm sure you can read the Romanian or the English translation. Another content we found on YouTube, and you can find the other screenshots also in the report we're going to publish with the EJA. This was another content on TikTok in Romania, published a few months before the report started in April 2023. Serbian. This content was found in Serbian, again on Twitter. As you can see, this is again about history related to Russia, like we've seen before, related to Russia, related to history of this region. Another content in Serbia, we have found another screenshot from Twitter that was published in December. It's still online, even though it was published in December. Twitter is not one of the platforms that removes lots of anti-Semitic content, so this is still online. This is a conspiracy theory about Jews, about Jewish communities. As you can see, they say that Jews have some disabilities, etc., and they're talking about specific people as well. A content that we found in Slovenia that is related to the Prime Minister of Italy. This is something we found also quite recently. Another conspiracy theory that regarding to another country, to Italy. This was the text here, the English translation here is not, the English translation is the former one, but if you read in one of the languages you can probably understand. This is again anti-Semitic content in Slovenian. And some about the future action. So there are more screenshots in the report that you can see later. There is also a theoretical part that you can read about. But it's very important to understand what we can do now from now to the next report in order to make it a bit of a better situation. So first of all, it's very important for me to say that this is one of the, maybe one of the first reports about online anti-Semitic content in Southeast European countries. There are no many other reports, maybe none even, regarding specifically about the online content. That is why we are very happy for this collaboration with the EJA, because this is going to raise awareness about the online content in those countries. Some countries are doing better, some countries are doing worse, but this is something we can change by raising awareness, of course, and this is part of our job by doing this report. It is very important, of course, to use the report for the people here in the room, policymakers, and also for people outside, like the social media representatives, social media companies, mayors, parliament members, etc., etc. This report should be published, should be sent to other people that can really change how their country deals with social media platforms, especially now in Europe, especially with the new DSA, with the new code of conduct, with the new European Union regulations on online social media platforms. This is something we do not have in Israel, this is something you have in Europe. This is why we can change a lot when we talk about online content, especially nowadays. And it's also very important that we continue the job. So the report, again, was just the beginning. It shows a small picture or a medium picture size of everything that we know online. And we encourage you, we encourage other people to join, to volunteer, to recruit in order to remove the content, to report the content, and this is what we're going to do next. The next step would be reporting the content we found to the social media platforms and asking them to remove the content because we have not reported the content yet, and I'm sure they will remove the content of anti-Semitic content, and we will also send you the results. I would like to thank you very much. I would like to thank the European Jewish Association for collaborating with us, and I'm sure you will enjoy reading the report and get some important insights. Thank you very much.
תודה רבה, תומר. I mean, I don't need to comment. It's very important that we have this kind of evidence supporting what we say, because it's one thing, as we just mentioned, to say things, and one other thing to do things. I would like to I have the privilege to moderate the next panel as well, so I would like to call on stage Mr. Kostas Karagounis, member of the Greek Parliament from the ruling party Nea Demokratia, Mr. Natan Albahari, member of the National Serbian Parliament, and Mr. Alexander Simidjiev, who is a member of the Bulgarian Parliament. Please, gentlemen, take your seats, and we will start with the discussion.
Okay. I don't know if this is on. Yeah, it's on. So, first of all, I'm very, very happy to have the opportunity to moderate this panel, because this is a panel of potential doers, finally, and not people that are going just to be present here to say a few nice words about what's happening in their respective countries. I will also, a little bit before the end of this panel, I'll be able to present you very quickly an initiative that was proposed to me by Mr. Simidjiev this morning, and I think it's a very important and very interesting initiative. But please hold your horses until the end of the panel, and then you'll hear more about it. Having said that, I was thinking, who should I give the floor first for some opening remarks? If the two EU member states of the panel allow me, I would start with a country that is an aspiring EU member state, Serbia, at least in paper, aspiring EU member state, if I may say so. And also starting with a person who has, of course, Jewish heritage. His father was one of the most well-known, famous Yugoslav and Serbian authors. Also, if I'm not mistaken, the president of the last president of the Yugoslav Jewish Federation. Unfortunately, he passed away a few months ago, but here is his son, Mr. Nathan Al-Bahari, who hopefully will continue the legacy by also trying to do some things inside the Serbian parliament, something not so easy given the current political situation. Mr. Al-Bahari.
Thank you very much, and it's a big honor to be here today with you and sitting and speaking in this panel. So thank you very much for this invitation. We don't have a lot of time, and there's a lot of things that have been happening recently, and I would just like to take a minute to make a comment on that before we start talking about the topic of today. But it is connected. I think it is connected, and I think we don't hear enough voices from Serbia, unfortunately. And as a member of Serbian Parliament, I want everyone to know that myself and my party, as part of the pro-European opposition, we most heartedly condemn these horrific acts that have been happening in Israel, and the horrors that the people have gone through is simply unimaginable. And I don't think that the images have resonated really in the public, and we need to do more to make sure that the people in Serbia and in the whole region really understand what is happening, and the distress and the horrors that people are going through in Israel. I personally have been very emotionally moved after I saw the images and the videos coming from the Supernova Festival. I have been to festivals like that in the past. This is also my community and my friends, and it really pained me, and it hurts to see what happened there. It is just unbelievable and unimaginable, and I have to say I do not understand anyone anywhere who can provide any sort of justification for those crimes that have happened, and I will do everything I can. I'm only one parliamentarian, but I will use every platform at my disposal to make sure that that message is delivered and heard in Serbia, where we have our own set of challenges. And looking at anti-Semitism as the barometer where we're talking about the accession, it is something that is a challenge for us in Serbia, not perhaps in direct anti-Semitism as such, but the indirect aspects that come of it and that are very present in nationalist discourse, in far-right movements, and even some who are affiliated with the right-wing thinking of the Serbian church. Looking at the report that we saw today, and on the various Twitter feeds, I myself have been the subject of these attacks of anti-Semitism on Twitter, where comments have been given to me that I need to return to Israel, even though I've never been to Israel, and I'm actually a dual Canadian citizen. So the only place where I can go back to would be Canada. I have been told that I need to be hung, that I need to return to the gas chambers, and this is unfortunately not an everyday occurrence, but it does happen often on social media, and it is a problem. In Serbia, I cannot speak for the countries in the region as much, but there are similarities. In Serbia, where, for example, I get most attacks that are based on anti-Semitism, are of course positions that go against the thinking of the nationalist aspect of the society, especially, for example, when myself and my party talk about the need to impose sanctions on Russia after the invasion on Ukraine, and to need to align Serbia with the European Union's foreign and security policy. That's when the anti-Semitism flares up the most. So in that sense, we can see a correlation between the pro-Russian elements in Serbia. We can see the correlation of the far right, of those who deny the genocide in Srebrenica, those who go around Belgrade and Serbia and draw murals of war criminals. Those are the same structures, the same groups of people who would also who hate Jews, who hate Israel, and who see no difference in attacking us or any other minority that they think is not or should not be welcome in Serbia. And that comes down to, when we discuss anti-Semitism or this right-wing ideology, it comes down to values. And in Serbia, we need, or sometimes we lack, this discussion of values, of fundamental values, especially if we are a country that wants to go and become a member of the European Union, which I wholeheartedly support and have been fighting for the last 15 years that I've been living in Serbia. Serbia's place is in Europe. Serbia's place is to become a member of the European Union. But at the same time, the Serbian government, especially this nationalist government that we have to understand that joining the European Union is not about checking the boxes. It's not about just passing legislation, but is about being a partner, a solid ally, and a society and a country that shares the fundamental values that the European continent has. And this we unfortunately fail to see from our current government. We fail to see them sharing these values and moving forward in trying to stymie the rise of nationalism or attacks on minorities. We see in their discourse, in their actions, that there is perhaps a lack of understanding of what these fundamental values mean and what their role in Serbian society needs to be. Serbia is a very much top-down society. Leadership of the country is looked for direction, and a lot of people listen very closely to when the president speaks, when the government speaks, when the ruling majority speak. And if those messages are counter to what the values we need to be fighting for, then of course that's going to be reflected in the population. Perhaps we can discuss in the next round a bit more on how to fight this, but one remark I want to make is one positive thing, and I know that here in Croatia there's also been issues with the far right and how to handle also aspects of anti-Semitism as well. One thing that I would definitely support in Serbia is imposing fines for the glorification of war criminals. If you draw a mural supporting any of the accused war criminals, you should be sanctioned for that. Instead, for several years, the Serbian government was completely silent on that matter and arrested and fined protesters who would, for example, throw eggs at these murals that glorify war criminals. And the police would prevent, I was part of these protests, would prevent us from approaching the murals and in a way protect the far right hooligans who were involved in drawing them. This has changed in the recent months, but it leaves a stain. It leaves a stain for the Serbian government and for Serbian society as a whole, and it is something we need to fight and at least start somewhere. Sorry for taking a bit too long of time, but we'll be happy to answer also more questions.
Not at all. I mean, it was very useful, and thank you, Nathan, for pointing out some very important things. I would just take out that indeed membership to the European Union does not mean ticking boxes and aligning legislation with the acquis communautaire of the European Union. It's much, much more, and unfortunately, you pointed it out. I'm not sure that the current Serbian political establishment really wants the country to become a member of the European Union. If Konstantinos allows me, I would go to the newest member of the European Union in the region, I mean after Croatia of course, Bulgaria, and to Alexander, to ask him to give us a couple of remarks, initial remarks about the situation, about the report maybe you've just seen.
Thank you. I'd also like to thank you for the honor of being here and being able to talk in front of such an distinguished audience, I'd like to make a link to the previous panel and something that Professor Goldstein said. I'll paraphrase it a bit. There is no content without context. So when we talk about this report, we need to understand a bit of the context around it. In Bulgaria, Twitter is probably one of the minor platforms. Instagram, Facebook are much wider and accepted. They're moderated, of course, better than Twitter is. And maybe one of the reasons that Twitter has such results and Bulgaria has such negative results in this report is because the content of Twitter is less moderated, especially after the acquisition of Twitter by Musk. There's a couple of other issues I need to touch on, and I'm glad that Nathan actually said some of the things I wanted to say, yeah, which is around the fact that we see anti-Semitic content, but that is usually linked to something which I'll use two Bulgarian words. We have patriotism in Bulgarian, and we have patriotarstvo, which is a different word. Patriotism is something more like an ideology. Patriotarstvo is something which you have on the external, you exhibit it, but you don't have an ideology. And most of that content is related to patriotarstvo. They don't have an ideology, they just hate. And for me, I have defined something which is bullies, orcs, and terrorists. They're very similar in that they want to destructure our society. It doesn't matter whether that's COVID. I'm very much a person who led anti-COVID measures in our country, which is one of the reasons I'm in Parliament now. But the fact is that we were trying to save people, we were trying to order our society, and on the other side were orcs, bullies, terrorists, who were trying to destructure society using any means possible. If somebody of Jewish descent was in their eyesight, they would become anti-Semitic. If an airplane flew above, they would become conspiracy theorists. If vaccination was around, they would become anti-vaxxers. And it is something which is orchestrated by those who are currently politically weak. They don't have arguments, they don't want a structured society, they just want to rule without having a lot of possibility to do that because they don't have the means, they don't have the structure, they don't have the management. They just want to be on top. I don't want to extend this too much, but it's just a food for thought, and I'm really glad to be on this panel because on this panel we have three very different vantage points. We have the Greek vantage point from an established European country. We have the Bulgarian vantage point of a new EU country. We have the vantage point of a person who will be coming into the EU, but also we're very close to some of the forces that actually want to destructure peace and moderation and actually normal human society. And when we talk of anti-Semitism, it is just an element of anti-humanism. It's an important element, but many of the people who try to destructure society are anti-humanistic. And anti-Semitism is just an important part of that, and it's something which, because of the communication possibilities and platform, you make visible. But anti-humanism is rife all around us, everywhere, and we should be battling it at every possible angle.
Thank you very much, Alexander. I mean, this is, it comes without saying, and we were speaking about it also in almost every EJA event in the past, that, you know, hate is hate. Anti-humanism, as you said it, is anti-humanism. It includes also anti-Semitism. If you hate a Jew, tomorrow you're going to hate somebody else, or even the same day. So it's clear like this. But let me reflect what you mentioned about an established EU member state like Greece is, like officially since '81. So one would expect, Konstantinos, from an established EU member state, some significant progress when it comes to these issues. Is this the case?
Thank you, George. Thank you very much. Let me begin by saying that we are all profoundly shocked by the recent barbaric events, and let me extend my and, of course, Greece's heartfelt condolences to the victims and their families. It is a horrific tragedy. And allow me to assure you that all political parties of Greece, we stand firmly in solidarity with Israel, and I extend my special thanks to the esteemed colleagues from the Hellenic Parliament that they are here with us today. MP Mamoulakis, who is from the opposition party of Greece, center-left party of Greece, and from Syriza, and the MP Katrinis, he's the member of Parliament, member of the Socialist Party, two very prominent and distinguished MPs whose presence today exactly, George, underscores the importance of our collective efforts in addressing these very pressing issues that you raised and all the other speakers have raised and we're going to discuss. So, to answer your question, let me raise some very, in my opinion, very crucial points. What's happening right now in Israel, and of course, I fully agree with what Nathan has raised before. It is a stark reminder of the depth, I could say, of cruelty and inhumanity that Hamas is capable of. So, my first remark is that we have to act, and to act now. No more words, no more good intentions. I think that it is not business as usual, as it is already said, and I think there is no time to waste. I think, George, this absolute tragedy has initially highlighted the urgent need for EU leaders to reassess their policy towards Hamas, towards Iran, towards Hezbollah, and towards all these terrorists. And let me repeat that it is crucial to recognize that these events serve as a painful reminder that not only Israel is under attack. I think that we're all under attack. EU is under attack, the Western world is under attack, and I think, Sunny, look, this girl from Germany, she's not Jewish, and the brutal and vulgar way with which her body was treated, I think, proves this tragic reality that I've spoken before. And let me point out that failure to act decisively would endorse such brutality. So, in my point of view, we should align, and I think this is very crucial, with Commissioner Oliver Wacherly's stance advocating for the immediate suspension of all funding. I think we should stop funding immediately. And once the situation stabilizes, carefully, I think, crafted prerequisites can be established for the resumption of funding. And as our Prime Minister, Kyriakos Mitsotakis, stated, it is essential to accept that borders cannot be violated, and terrorist activities must face unwavering consequences and equal distances. This is very crucial to say. Equal distances objectively favor aggression. So we have to bear in mind, all the EU countries, how to work from now on. Moreover, I think that this horrific attack highlighted the urgent need for EU to reassess its policy towards Iran, especially towards Iran, because Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad receive funding and support from Iran. So EU must respond effectively. And I think George returning to our original agenda, because I've heard very interesting ideas, I strongly propose that it is essential for each EU country and neighboring countries, like Turkey, we should publicly declare and they should publicly declare their stance on Hamas and other terrorist groups. We should have such a common declaration. This declaration could serve as a patent, let's say as a patent barometer in the assessment of countries aspiring for EU membership and EU countries reflecting their commitment in the EU's fundamental values and human rights. I think, George, in my point of view, it is crucial it's something that we should recognize, that it's crucial to hold governments accountable, ensuring their active engagement in the fight against anti-Semitism, including public education and victim support, and in my opinion, to fortify our efforts. Allow me to propose, and we can work on it, is to formate parliamentary subcommittees across European parliaments that will closely monitor governments' actions in implementing these criteria and the fight against anti-Semitism in general. Subcommittees could monitor and assess the progress they are doing. So it is evident that it is not only individuals who must be held accountable, but the governments and parliaments themselves. And such a development, I think, would create a platform for governments to collaborate, share policies, and act collectively. So, George, let me raise another issue, as the report pointed out. I think in the era of social media and their impact, which is being used, and it is well known, to incite hatred against Jews, strict monitoring is essential. And I fully agree with the report. I propose engaging volunteers, including university students, human rights activists, and others, to work with NGOs like FOA, who had this report, and it's very essential, in order to track posts effectively, identifying instances of hate speech, and promptly address them. So, let me conclude, George. We need a combined strategy of utilizing funding as a penalty and/or motivation, establishing dedicated subcommittees, and harnessing the power of monitoring through volunteers and other means in order to eradicate anti-Semitism and uphold the fundamental values of the European Union. So let me say that we have to act, and we have to act now. Thank you, George.
Thank you, President. I think you raised a lot of very, very important issues, and we also briefly discussed it yesterday during dinner, that the Greek national plan against anti-Semitism is due. Hopefully it's going to come out soon. So is the Croatian national plan against anti-Semitism. To me, because we are speaking about the report, and we're also speaking about the accession criteria, the Commission has asked all 27 member states to produce such a national plan. Some of them already did so. Some others are preparing it. And most of the elements you just mentioned, I think they could fit perfectly into this national plan. I'm not sure they will be there, but I think it's also partly in our hands to try and reinforce engrave these elements into the national plan. I would like to ask Nathan, since we're talking about EU accession and EU criteria, sometimes the EU has been quite double standarded when it came to its criteria applicable for candidate member states. I would see that when it comes to this particular field, anti-Semitism, a solid national plan on combating anti-Semitism could be a very important accession criteria for Serbia, for Macedonia, for Montenegro, for all the countries of the region who are aspiring EU membership. So was there ever any serious discussion in Serbia, in the parliament or outside the parliament, about a national plan for combating anti-Semitism?
To be honest, I don't think we've ever had that serious conversation. We've had in Parliament, we have, for example, a friendship group between Serbia and Israel that doesn't really meet very often. And to be honest, a lot of members from the governing coalition who sit in that group, I don't think they have any idea of what's actually happening on the ground and what the fight against anti-Semitism actually is. Do we need something like that? Yes, I think it would help, because right now in Serbia there is no official monitoring in that sense. There is some work by the Jewish community, but it is not a standardized, institutionalized approach. Can we get something like that in Serbia? Again, we probably could with enough pressure and enough advocacy towards the government and the parliament. The question is, would it be effective? Or would it be just another thing that the government can check the box and say, look, we've established an office for the monitoring and fight against anti-Semitism, something like that. But would this office, would this person, would this institution have real powers, real watchdog capacities, and would their reports be taken seriously? I would hope so, but at the same time, I'm not that optimistic considering the current political situation in Serbia. I think what would help to start off would be to have a similar event like this to take place in Belgrade, but to make sure that the event is not there to give the government an excuse that it's actually doing something. It has to be a serious event where serious questions will be asked of government stakeholders, and where actual pressure would be applied. In terms of the European Union accession, we have under chapters 23 and 24 regarding human and minority rights aspects where this can be part of the accession process, and I know that these are the two most important chapters in Serbia's accession, which include judiciary reform, fight against corruption, and rule of law measures, because it all comes down to the respect of law, to the respect of human and minority rights, and this is absolutely something that Serbia has made progress in general over the last 2 decades, but more needs to be done, absolutely.
Thank you. I mean, this was also an indirect invitation for EJA. I perceived it like this to organize a similar event in Belgrade, so I'll be happy to consider this. We heard also some 10 days ago there was a governmental session where we heard that they are planning to build a Holocaust memorial in the Jainci Memorial Park, which is, for me, something to applaud. I would applaud unconditionally if there were some footnotes behind that. In a formal, it's going to be the biggest Holocaust memorial in the region. We have this kind of, in the Balkans, a need to show off. Every time we do something, even if it's in the right direction, we need to show off. We build the biggest church, we build the biggest synagogue, the biggest memorial. It's not about size. It's clear that it's not about size.
If I can just add.
Of course, yes.
Absolutely. It does not need to be the grandest, the biggest. It just needs to happen. And for the last 20 years, there's been discussion on building a memorial on one of the former concentration camps of Staro Sajmište. It's been taking 20 years. Why do we need such a long, if there is political will, if there is funding provided, which there was from international support, international partners, why couldn't have this project started 5, 10, 15 years ago? That's another question that needs to be asked of the government. Again, we don't need a grandiose project. We just need a memorial center, a remembrance center, so that the victims are not forgotten and the discussion can be held in society.
Yeah, it's very important indeed. No matter how big or small this is, the size is not important. What the political will is important. And I would like to ask Alexander something that is applicable, of course, for Greece and Serbia as well. Having in mind also what we just saw in the report, that Bulgaria is unfortunately the champion of hate speech and anti-Semitism online, at least according to the findings of the report. How close are you working with relevant stakeholders, and I'm meaning primarily the Jewish communities in Bulgaria? How close are you working as member of parliament or as a parliament in a whole in order to combat this kind of issues?
Well, let me start to answer by making everybody reflect on the report. There was one slide where there was a picture of a man with glasses, a large picture, if you remember in the report. Well, that is the vice chair of the third largest party in parliament. He's also vice chair of the parliament. He's an ardent nationalist. He's openly anti-Semitic, and he's the third largest party, which is currently increasing in relevance if we have parliamentary elections soon. What I'm trying to say is that many of them are actually anti-Euro, anti-Europe. They want to push Bulgaria out of the European Union, which is something quite drastic, as you can imagine, in a country which has already felt the benefits of being in the European Union. What I'm trying to say is this: we have to be constantly vigilant. We have to always put pressure in the right direction, because even though we're in the EU, that doesn't mean that things are set in stone. So there's always a battle which we need to wage every day in Parliament, including, and any support around the region for causes of structuring society versus destructuring it, something which I started talking at the very beginning, would be important for the different groups who would like to structure society versus the groups, the orcs, the terrorists, the bullies who want to destructure society. And this is something which we need to come together, to do together, because unless we're together, we will be beaten in each of our separate small enclaves, which is why I would fully support having a very definite position of all European parliaments condemning what is happening currently with Hamas. What I'm trying to say is that we need to work together. We need to be totally vigilant all the time. And we need to remember that even though we've achieved the goal, that doesn't mean that we've achieved it. We can always be pushed back. So we need to be tenacious and vigilant to hold our ground on everything we have achieved as democratic values, as humanistic values, because ultimately this is about life, and when you save one life, you save humanity. We need to be we need to be vigilant about every life we can. And as a physician, I can tell you that this is something which the ones who truly hold the profession in their heart is something which is inside. It's not something which can be instituted from the outside.
Great, thank you. I have a couple of more questions, but I think it's not fair if I monopolize that part. So let us open the floor for you, for our esteemed guests, in case you have any questions that you would like to address to our panelists. We'll be more than happy to hear them. No? Yes? Can we have a microphone, please? Yeah. I think, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Isabel Meireles, from MP from Portugal, and I would like to ask one question, because I think we have here a very interesting opinion about the accession of member states to the European Union. And between the criteria that we know that are economic, democratic, and so on, in fact, we could put one that is the fact that is the country that is willing to access to the European Union doesn't have anti-Semitism problems. Of course, people will have other things of discrimination, but I think it's a good idea to put it in the accession criteria, and we should work on it. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, of course.
If you allow me to speak to that, Bulgaria in this report comes out the worst. This report is done at a time right after the pandemic. Many of you who have studied history would know what happened during the Second World War with Bulgarian Jews. They were saved. Bulgaria was the only country that didn't have Jews die in the country. We saved all our Jews. So when we think about anti-Semitism, again, I would go back to the content and context. We're not anti-Semitic as a country, very far from it. What happened in the last several years was COVID, followed by the aggression of Russia in Ukraine, the war in Ukraine. Those two activities led to a general feeling of helplessness and hate within society, which materializes in anti-Semitic sentiment, including in Parliament. And this is something which needs to be really well thought through, because we need to look at the root cause. As a physician, we need to diagnose before we treat. Anti-Semitism is something we see as a symptom. The root causes are much deeper, and we need to go after the root causes, because unless we do that, we won't be able to solve the problem. We won't be able to cure the symptom. We can decrease it, but we won't get rid of it. We need to get rid of it, which means we need to treat the cause.
Kostadina.
I fully agree with you, and that's why I pay a lot of attention, and I've stated about this, about state accountability. Because as you know, there are a lot of actions plan around Europe, and this is EU action plan against anti-Semitism. The question is who monitors this action plan? And that's why I think we should find some institutions, some more official institutions to monitor these action plans. So I fully agree with you that there should be more specific, I could say, criteria for entering the EU. And but we have to find out who will monitor if, let's say, the Copenhagen criteria are met and are respected. So that's why we need official monitoring, and I think we need the monitoring just to check the respect of human rights in general, and of course, if there is a progress, if the countries are doing progress regarding the fight against anti-Semitism.
Thank you, Kostadina. Just to highlight that Isabel is one of your colleagues, is a member of the Portuguese Parliament,
yeah.
And because we have been in Portugal in May, we hosted the annual conference there. I may say that they have done remarkable work as a legislative body to promote, to foster Jewish life and help the three main communities in the country to thrive. Despite the hiccups and the issues, we all know about them, but the progress is there, it's visible. Jews are returning to Portugal, to live in Portugal. They consider Portugal a safe place. So I think Portugal, and maybe to a lesser extent also Spain, could be considered as a success story, relatively success story, when it comes to Jews, because as I said in the very beginning, the number of Jews in Europe, in the European Union, is either stagnating in a few member states or even declining. So it is a signal that we need to take seriously. Are there any other questions for our? Yes, Jakob.
This is the first time that I'm really standing up to say something, and I have to make a report on what was said earlier about anti-Semitism. I was born in Bulgaria. At the age of 2.5, 1949, my parents immigrated to Israel to build a country, a community that was free of the Holocaust complex, because everybody else that came at that time to Israel was filled of anger, of inability to communicate to the reality where they were brought to. The Bulgarian communities that immigrated, out of the 50,000 that survived the Holocaust, the entire Jewish community, 45,000 of them immediately immigrated to Israel as one group. Most of them even settled in Yafo. In Yafo, all the stores had signs in Bulgarian because the Bulgarians had a hard time even learning the Hebrew language. They were very slow in those things. But this brings me, I am in Bulgaria for 30 years. I came 30 years ago for 6 months to do a mission there. And I stayed there because I saw a call. You know, I felt a debt to those people for what they've done exactly 80 years ago this time. And one thing I want to tell you, I don't know if there is a term to the opposite of anti-Semitism. When I tell them that I'm a Jew and I'm an Israeli, they embrace me. I have a credit before I've done anything, just because of what I am, not because what I've done, but what I am. And it's very hard for me to hear that there is a rise of anti-Semitism in Bulgaria. Yes, if you ask a Jew if his priority is Israel as opposed to the country where he lives in, well, let me tell you, we always support Israel far beyond anything else. So don't ask us this question because it's an unfair question. And, because it was one of the questioners of the ADL a few years ago, that Jews in your country are more loyal to your country than the state of Israel. Yes, Israelis, Jews are always more loyal to their own state. And let's not have those questions about it. And just to conclude, in Bulgaria, I have not noticed an anti-Semitism. If there is something that conspiracy ideas in a poor society where education is a problem, you always have all sorts of fantasies. But in reality, do you notice an anti-Semitism? There is no such a thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yakov. Yeah, I mean, I think nobody will disagree with you on the remarks you made. Being conscious of time, as always, I have to ask if there are any other questions so that we can slowly wrap it up. I would rather, I'm just blinded by the light, sorry.
I will be short just to mention one episode. I'm from Macedonia, Alexander Damsky from Macedonia. I'm glad to hear about anti-Semitism in Bulgaria, but we should know, I should mention one historical fact which was happened during the Second World War in Macedonia. Macedonia was under the occupation of the Bulgarian regime, and in that period 11,000 Jews by the Bulgarians were expelled to Treblinka by the trains. They will follow to Belgrade, and from Belgrade Germans just transportation, they continue with transportation to Treblinka. So it's good to hear such stories, but we should have a full picture. Thank you.
Alexander, you want to say, comment something?
What you're referring to is the military who were there, who were actually allies of Hitler at that time? Yeah, absolutely. In our country, which was at that time the Jews were prepared for the same type of outcome, but they were allowed by our parliament and by several supporters within the parliament to actually leave. Nobody was sent to any chambers. Until the year 2020, you could not measure in any such study anti-Semitism on social media. What I was trying to say was that the last 3 years, after the COVID pandemic, which generated a lot of conspiracy theory, followed by the aggressive war of Russia in Ukraine, sentiment in society changed dramatically, and with the support of, I don't want to name a specific state, although I'm thinking of one. I don't want to name it because I don't have the actual proof outside of IP addresses of troll farms who are feeding public sentiment, trying to destructure society, including anti-Semitism, including extreme nationalism, including hate speech, including conspiracy theories, all of them trying to destructure our societies. I'm originally, my grandmother and grandfather are from Northern Macedonia. We're cousins. Currently, we're almost at war. Why? Because of external forces trying to destabilize each of the separate countries, making it impossible for us to talk normally. And that is something which we should not allow. That is why I'm saying that we should not allow destructuring of society. And we acceded to the European Union back in 2007. If we had done any measurements, including criteria for anti-Semitism, we would still have been accepted in the EU. What is happening is now, during the war and during the calamities of COVID, something is happening in our society which is dramatically different, and it is not only about Semitism, it's about destructuring of society as a whole. Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, it's important what you just said, that people need to talk above everything, and it's not very pleasant when two neighboring countries that share also a few common historic elements, if I may say, are in non-speaking terms. You cannot change your neighbor. Your neighbor is who he is or who she is. It's impossible to change. Thank you very much. I would keep from what our three speakers, panelists said, a word that Konstantinos used a couple of times, state accountability. It's very important. It's very important also to be able to monitor the progress of these national plans when they're going to be in place, and not to have situations where we go to the Commission, we go to the special rapporteur on anti-Semitism, Katarina von Schnurbein, asking for evaluation of these plans, and she says to us, look, we do what we can, but we cannot force them to implement the measures they themselves have proposed. This is an absurdity. I'm sure you understand, and it needs to stop. And it should start, stopping this absurdity should start from the national parliaments of existing EU member states, but also aspiring EU member states. So, gentlemen, I would like to thank you very much for your thoughts, your inputs, your discussion, and I'm really looking forward to actions, honestly. Thank you very much.
So yeah, I'm the joker of the conference. Actually, it's a role that I assumed for myself. Nobody gave it to me. So again, we are a little bit late. So I will really jump into the next project that we would like to show you before going to the final panel and the lunch break. It's something that occurred to me during this summer. When I was first acquainted with this project, I didn't know it existed. But in order not to lose any more time, I will kindly ask Tanya Dabo, who is a visual artist and actually the mother of this project, to say a few words about it and present it to you. Thank you, Tanya.
somebody help me with the technical issues? Okay. Okay. Dobar dan svima. Hello everybody. I will speak in Croatian because of the subject of my talk. I think it's important that the talk which I will give is presented in Croatian because Croatia is the main subject of the talk. I was prepared for talking from my computer, not from this new technique. This is the introductional picture, and now we will start. Hopefully here or here. Where do I have to click? Okay. So my name is, moje ime je Tanja Dabo, ja sam vizualna umjetnica i profesorica na sveučilištu u Zagrebu. I ovo izlaganje zove se Usputno zlo, radi se o umjetničkom istraživanju. I would like, if you want to hear it, to put the headphones. Yes. So what was my, again, in Croatian, što je bila moja motivacija za ovo istraživanje? Pa motivacija je bila da ja se inače bavim temama koje me okružuju. Radim jedan veliki ciklus koji se zove, umjetnički ciklus koji se zove Korpus domovina, u kojem tematiziram svoj odnos prema različitim pojavama u mojoj domovini. Umjetničko istraživanje Usputno zlo nastalo je iz jedne observacije grada i ulica u kojima boravim. Primijetila sam u nekoliko godina prije nego što sam započela istraživanje da se na našim ulicama pojavlja sve više i više natpisa koji veličaju različita zločinačka razdoblja ili potiču na nasilje ili predstavljaju govor mržnje. Budući da mi ni samo i nije jasno kako je došlo do toga da sam i ja pa i moje dijete izloženo takvom govoru sa ulica mojih gradova, odlučila sam malo više istražiti o tome. Znači, kao što sam, nešto je otišlo predale, nije otišlo. Kao što sam rekla, istraživanje se zove Usputno zlo. Što je tu usputno? A što je tu zlo? To ćete vidjeti iz sljedeće fotografije. Jako me zbunjuje ova dvostruka tehnološka situacija. Dakle, radi se o jednoj od fotografija iz istraživanja i pretpostavljam da vam je svima jasno da usputno se vidi iz ove lijeve strane fotografije gdje jedna građanka u Zagrebu naprosto prolazi kraj ovakvih natpisa usputno, ali i ti natpisi s vremenom nastaju tijekom godina eto kao nešto usputno u našem javnom prostoru, a da se nitko zapravo time ozbiljno ne zabavlja. Zlo, naravno, je sa desne strane fotografije, to sam zaboravila reći, ZDS, pozdrav za dom spremni i ustaško U.
Za one koji ne znaju, to su simboli koji simboliziraju nezavisnu državu Hrvatsku, iz nje su i potekli i to je zapravo ekvivalent i nacističke i fašističkih država iz Drugog svjetskog rata. Što je to umjetničko istraživanje? S obzirom da sam profesorica na visokoškolskoj instituciji, moram vas malo i sa time zapravo upoznat. Ajme, ja neću moći ovako sa dva ekrana, moram gledati dole. Dakle, usputno zlo je, kao što sam rekla, umjetničko-istraživački projekt. Provodila sam ga uz pomoć kustosice Davorke Perić iz organizacije Vizura Aperta, koja mi kontinuirano daje podršku u različitim radovima i umjetničkim istraživanjima. Na kraju istraživanja sam napisala zaključak u kojem sam pojasnila svoju motivaciju i zaključak možete pronaći na ovoj poveznici koja je tu navedena, bit će još jednom i na kraju. I istraživanje je dobilo financijsku potporu Zaklade kulture Nova. Provodila sam ga cijelu 2020. godinu i ovo što ću vam prezentirati, nadam se jako brzo, da vas puno da vam ne dosađujem, je zapravo samo jedan vrlo mali dio. Ovo su ilustracije nekih od fotografija koje su nastale u istraživanju. Vješala Zagreb, kolji Srbe. Ovaj natpis stoji dugi niz godina na jednoj ogradi u Zagrebu. Što sam ja istraživala? Pa istraživala sam i dokumentirala dokaze izražavanja zla. Dokazi su zapravo ti natpisi u javnom prostoru koji nas dakako svakodnevno okružuju i to su natpisi koji pozivaju na mržnju, na ubojstvo drugih i drugačijih i koji veličaju te zločinačke režime koje sam malo prije spomenula. Koji su bili ciljevi istraživanja? Ciljevi umjetničkog istraživanja su umjetničko istraživanje može se povezati analogijom sa znanstvenim istraživanjem, ali ima drugačije ciljeve. Ciljeve postavlja samo umjetnik ili umjetnica. Moji ciljevi su bili podizanje svijesti građana i institucija o postojanju takvih natpisa, zatim poticanje na proaktivno djelovanje zajednice, proaktivno djelovanje zbog toga što ja kao umjetnica ne mogu riješiti sve probleme, naravno, ali ako svi skupa budemo svjesni da problem postoji, onda ga možemo svi probati riješiti. Poticanje institucija na preveniranje i uklanjanje natpisa, dakle ne samo uklanjanje onih natpisa koji su bili prijavljeni, već i onih koji će nastati nakon toga, a i onih koje ja nisam dokumentirala. Znači, propitivanje zakonskog okvira, zanimalo me da li zapravo negdje u hrvatskim zakonima postoji bilo kakva zabrana isticanja takvih simbola i govora mržnje u javnom prostoru. I jedan od ciljeva je bio uklanjanje takvih natpisa sa naših ulica. Meni samo je neprihvatljivo svaki dan prolaziti kraj svastike, kraj ustaškog kraj šahovnice sa prvim bijelim poljem, dakle cilj je bio i uklanjanje. I ovo je također jedna od ilustracija koju ćete vidjeti kasnije i u još jednoj novoj situaciji. Koji su bili problemi u ovom istraživanju? Znači, godinu dana je provođeno. Pa moji osobni uvidi i početna motivacija je zapravo bila i djelomično pogrešna. Dakle, to ne možete znati dok ne krenete istraživati. Početna ideja i tema je bila da će tih natpisa biti znatno manje nego što ih je u stvarnosti bilo i nego što ih je i dan danas. Nisam bila uvjerena da ću tako lako i brzo detektirati tko su počinitelji. Bila sam uvjerena da su počinitelji neki nepoznati ljudi koje nitko ne može otkriti i zbog toga sam mislila da možda natpisi se i ne uklanjaju. Međutim, učestalost natpisa kraj navijačkih grafita ukazala mi je na to da su zapravo takvi natpisi i govor mržnje i simboli vrlo često povezani sa navijačkim skupinama. Još jedan problem je bio da nije bilo moguće dokumentirati sve natpise. U jednom trenutku istraživanje sam morala prekinuti jer bih naprosto nastavila svoj život dokumentirajući jedno te isto. Znači, nakon godine dana sam morala prestati sa dokumentiranjem. Ja ih i dalje viđam, i dalje ih sebi dokumentiram i mislim ih ponovno prijaviti, ali se time više ne mogu baviti na ovaj strukturirani način. Jedan od problema je da nisam dobila niti jedan odgovor institucija da se radi o zabranjenim natpisima u Hrvatskoj. Još jedan od problema je da je samo mali dio natpisa uklonjen, a to mi je, kao što ste prije vidjeli, bio cilj istraživanja da se natpisi uklone. Uklonjenih je mali broj. Imala sam i izazove. Izazovi su bili da je natpisa bilo izrazito puno, da su oni jako različiti, da je trebalo zapravo donijeti odluku što je govor mržnje, koje natpise uvrstiti, koje ne uvrstiti. Dakle, osim fašističkih, nacističkih i ustaških natpisa, obuhvatila sam i natpise koji se tiču govora mržnje, poput ACAB ili 1312 koji su vam vjerojatno svima poznati, All Caps are Bastards i isto to, ali u numeričkom izdanju. Također trebala sam donijeti odluku za pojedine simbole koju terminologiju koristiti, zbog toga što oni koji takve natpise stavljaju u javni prostor su vrlo glasni, pogotovo na društvenim mrežama, ako ih se slučajno krivo smjesti u neku krivu skupinu. Također trebalo je donijeti odluku što je to govor mržnje u slučaju ovog umjetničkog istraživanja. I naravno još jedna ilustracija na kojoj vidite ustaško U tu između ove dvije tabelice za apartmane u Splitu. Koji je bio postupak istraživanja? Dakle, započela sam sa terenskim, nakon toga je uslijedila samo edukacija jer je natpisa, vidjet ćete kasnije koliko ih je, natpisa je toliko puno i toliko su različiti da je bila potrebna samo edukacija, koja je naravno onda bila vrlo zanimljiva. Zatim istraživanje zakonodavnog okvira, ali ne samo u Hrvatskoj, radila sam komparacije i sa drugim europskim državama. Nedavno sam čak pokušala i nešto kroz umjetnu inteligenciju istražiti, zanimljiv je odgovor, preporučam da isprobate. Istraživala sam i recentne medijske objave i komparirala sam medijske objave sa situacijom sa istim tim natpisima na Google Mapsu i dokumentirala sam, znači isti natpis sam na 3 načina zapravo istražila. Vidjet ćete studiju slučaja. Slala sam upite organizacijama civilnog društva za pomoć, neki su se odazvali. Slala sam upite, odnosno slale smo, Davorka i ja, upite državnim institucijama, DORH-u, MUP-u, Pučkoj pravobraniteljici, Ustavnom sudu, gdje sam tražila zapravo njihove odgovore o zakonitosti tih pojava u javnom prostoru. Pozivala sam građane na aktivno sudjelovanje, građani su se odazivali, moram reći često sa velikim strahom i sa molbama za anonimnošću. I terenski sam istraživala, odnosno Davorka i ja smo obišle gotovo cijelu Hrvatsku i tražile smo natpise i samoinicijativno i po dojavama građana. Potom smo napisali brojne dopise hrvatskim gradovima i općinama gdje smo tražili uklanjanje natpisa i na kraju sam napisala zaključak, sistematizirala podatke i javno ih objavila. Koji su rezultati istraživanja? Ukupno su dokumentirane 183 lokacije, ukupno u 21 gradu i selima u Hrvatskoj. Ukupno je dokumentirano 465 simbola i natpisa i za svaki od tih simbola je zatraženo uklanjanje. Znači, za svaki simbol sa opisom i mjestom i lokacijom. Tijekom istraživanja ovo su natpisi koje smo dokumentirali. Od ovih već viđenih kukastog križa, odnosno svastike, NDH, Za dom spremni, Sieg Heil, ACAB i tako dalje, Juden Raus, Ubi Srbina i tako dalje. Broj izdvojenih različitih natpisa je dakle 53, raznolikost je jako velika. Broj kreiranih datoteka u tih godinu dana koje sam poduzela, odnosno stvorila da bi napravila ovo istraživanje je 3283 datoteke. To vam govorim zbog toga da steknete dojam zapravo koliko je to kompleksna stvar. To su dokumenti i fotografije. U zaključku istraživanja, kojeg možete naći na onoj prethodnoj poveznici, a bit će i na kraju, je i odjeljak za one koji žele znati više, za one koji se žele zapravo educirati i o simbolima i o cijeloj toj pojavi. Evo još jedna ilustracija. Noću sanja mrtve tovare. Tovari su Dalmatinci, za one koji ne znaju. Ustaško U, dakle ekvivalent svastici i raznim drugim fašističkim i nacističkim simbolima. Ovo je Split, centar Splita, jedna od prometnih turističkih ulica za koju nitko nije vidio problem da se ovaj simbol tu nalazi. Ovo je Zagreb, osnovna škola Oranice. Na igralištu je bilo strašno puno ovih nacističkih orlova. Kako, rekla sam vam da sam trebala poduzeti određenu samoedukaciju, kako znala sam da se radi o nacističkom simbolu, nisam znala njegovo porijeklo i točno značenje, pa sam krenula istraživati to i naišla na vodič, mislim da se to na hrvatskom kaže FARE, odnosno FAIR.net, to je vodič, poznata vam je svima sigurno ta organizacija, jedan vrlo koristan vodič sa različitim simbolima i tu sam pronašla i keltski križ i ovog orla, ali i različite druge zanimljive stvari. Evo jedan keltski križ i NDH. Dakle, za vrijeme trajanja projekta rekla sam da smo komunicirali sa zajednicom putem društvenih mreža u smislu edukacije i poziva da građani dojave različite lokacije. Ovo je Split, Zagreb, ljekarna u Borovju, više mislim da tog natpisa nema, jedan veliki park usred Novog Zagreba, osnovna škola, dakle jedan od motiva zbog čega sam poduzela ovo istraživanje je da se godinama na zidu ispred osnovne škole koju pohađa moje dijete su se nalazili ovakvi natpisi i htjela sam da se uklone. Na ovaj ćemo se slajd vratiti kasnije. Ubi Srbina, ustaško U na igralištu na Srednjacima. Preko puta osnovne škole Josipa Račića vidite također ustaško U. I na Petrovoj gori na spomeniku ustanku naroda Banije i Korduna također ustaško U. Ovo je dječji vrtić Maslačak u Osijeku sa ustaškim U. Također dječji vrtić Nevičica sa kukastim križem. Osnovna škola Tinujević u Osijeku sa ustaškim U. Dakle, ne pričamo samo o nekakvim stražnim stranama nekakvih zgrada u nekim kvartovima, pričamo o ustanovama za edukaciju. Također Osijek, Zagreb, evo ovo sam za ovo izlaganje fotografirala, toga ima jako puno. Cres ovog ljeta, Za dom spremni, druga strana ceste, isto autobusna stanica, ustaško U i keltski križ. Dakle, istražujući na početku, gledala sam 2020. priručnik FARE iz 2016. Tada su se hrvatski simboli, kao što je ustaško U, šahovnica sa prvim bijelim poljem i Za dom spremni nalazili u vodiču. Provjerila sam prije par dana dok sam se pripremala kakva je sada situacija. Fare je nadodao i Srbe na vrbe u svoj vodič, što je stvarno pohvalno. I sad nakon što ste sve ovo vidjeli, ovo je stvarno jedan jako veliki sažetak nečeg što je nastajalo godinu dana. Pitate li se isto što i ja? Je li to u Hrvatskoj zabranjeno i kako je to regulirano? Pa evo sad ćemo vidjeti odgovor. U svim onim obraćanjima hrvatskim institucijama poslali smo pismo ministru Davoru Božinoviću u Ministarstvo unutarnjih poslova i pitali smo jesu li ovi natpisi u Hrvatskoj izričito zabranjeni. Dakle, radilo se o natpisima Kukasti križ, Za dom spremni, Ubi Srbina, Ubi pedera, NDH, Srbe na vrbe, Ubi cigana, Ubi tovara, UHTU, ACAB i grb sa prvim bijelim poljem. Odgovor je stigao, teško ga je čitati, pa sam ga prepisala, možemo samo ovo crveno proći, da u odnosu na slučajeve koje navodimo u dopisu potrebno je istaknuti kako pozitivno zakonodavstvo u Republici Hrvatskoj ne navodi popis poruka, fotografija ili simbola koji predstavljaju prekršaj ili kazneno djelo za koje se kazneni postupak pokreće po službenoj dužnosti, već je pojavu takvih simbola ili poruka potrebno promatrati u vremenskom i prostornom kontekstu, kao i u kontekstu s drugim događajima i radnjama. Dakle, zabranjeno nije, a kontekst je nepoznat. Kada govorimo o simbolima i samoj edukaciji, ali i o tome što je zakonito ili nije u kojoj državi, znači u Hrvatskoj je nažalost moguće imati registarsku pločicu. To sam istražila naišla na to i tijekom istraživanja sa datumom osnivanja NDH i sa slovom U. Dok je u Austriji 2015. Zakonom o motornim vozilima zabranjeno preko 30 različitih simbola. To što mi znamo možda za neke elementarne simbole ne znači da su to ujedno i svi. Oni koji ih ispisuju vrlo su dosjetljivi i potrebna je kontinuirana edukacija o tome koji su to simboli koji veličaju periode o kojima sam rekla. Nekoliko studija slučaja. Jedan dio natpisa moguće je bilo pratiti na Google Mapsu, pa se moglo istražiti koliko dugo već postoje. Ovo je uživo fotografirano, dakle osnovna škola Marijan 2020. To i dalje vidimo 2023. Na tom zidu, samo izbljedjelo od protoka vremena. Ulica Hrvatske Mornarice 2020. i dalje stoji natpis premda je prijavljen. Drugi natpis, odnosno grb sa prvim bijelim poljem 2020. i 2023. i dalje stoji, premda je prijavljen. Vukovarska ulica 2019. Ovo možete vidjeti, aktualno je sa Google Mapsa 2019. i 2023. i dalje stoji grb. Zrinsko-Frankopanska apartmani i dalje pozivaju turiste sa Kelskim križem i Ustaškim u Splitu, u samom centru Splita. Vrapča tržnica 2020. sa mnogobrojnim simbolima je prebojana, ali su u međuvremenu nastali novi simboli koje nitko nije u međuvremenu uklonio. I jedan prizor od kojih će neki od vas koji će gostovati ovih dana i koji su gostovali prethodnih mjeseci na HRT-u vidjeti sigurno na dolasku i odlasku na našu nacionalnu televiziju. Još jedna studija slučaja, Vrana, Pakoštane u Dalmaciji. Google Maps iz 2011. vidite natpis na krovu ove kuće, dobrodošli NDH. Ja sam to snimila 2020. i prijavila. 2022. Google Maps snimio da natpis i dalje tu stoji. mrežna stranica projekta ako netko želi znati više i to je od mene sve. Hvala. Nadam se da vas nisam jako udavila. Hvala. Imate li pitanja? Možda. Može.
Ja ću samo neku konstataciju. Ja sam Danijel Atijas, predsjednik Jevrejske opštine iz Doboja, iz Bosne i Hercegovine. Inače sam i ljekar kao fudbalskog kluba Premier Liga Sloga iz Doboja i susrećemo se sa raznim tim situacijama gdje upravo pomenuli ste navijačke grupe i mislim da pošto su to događaji koji su praćeni medijski, a da se dešavaju takvi rasistički i bilo kakvi drugi pamfleti, za to je vrlo lako naći krivca i za svake te grupe stoji uprava kluba. Znači, 100% oni imaju komunikaciju sa navijačima tih grupa i jednostavno igrači s tim i treneri, ne znam, oni nemaju s tim ništa, ali jednostavno nije dovoljno od strane FIFA i UEFA da postoji samo natpis onaj no rasizmu i tako dalje. Svaka pojava takvih nekih stvari, ne samo antisemitskih, nego bilo kakvih, trebala bi biti zakonski, odnosno da se pošalje naša poruka prema tim organizacijama da bi se automatski utakmica izgubila. Za igrače je nešto najgore da izgube utakmicu za koju se pripremaju čitave sedmice, troše se novci za karantine, za sve neke stvari i da se izgubi zbog takve stvari. Mislim, ako bi se takva poruka poslala, to bi se moglo napraviti. Bez toga i dalje će to biti, bit će popularno, bit će na televiziji, mladi će se ugledati na takve likove i mi nećemo napraviti ništa. Eto, hvala vam.
Hvala. Ja kao netko tko je pedagoške struke vjerujem u edukaciju. Dok sam ja bila mala, nije bilo moguće u javnom prostoru vidjeti kukasti križ. Mi smo svi znali da je to nešto strašno, da se to ne smije pisati nigdje, ni potajice, ni na zidove škole, ne daj Bože. Vjerujem da je edukacija ta koja je zakazala da zapravo tako olako svi pristupamo, pa i mi koji prolazimo usputno uz takve znakove, a i oni koji to zapravo iscrtavaju. Govor mržnje i ovakvi simboli ne mogu dovesti do nenasilja, do povećanja tolerancije, do uvažavanja drugih i drugačijih. Nasilje može dovesti samo do drugog nasilja. Dakle, ovaj krug u kojeg smo mi danas ušli treba prekinuti prvenstveno, po mom mišljenju, edukacijom u najranijim godinama. Pa onda dalje, prvo prevencija, pa onda sankcioniranje. Barem ja tako mislim. Ima li još pitanja? Hvala.
Hvala, Tanja. Meni je jako drago što ovaj posljednji panel ovog, ajde recimo, uslovno jutra prije ručka je posvećen edukaciji, jer inače ne bi imao smisla pokazivati ono što ste već vidjeli. Mislim da je jasna poruka i još jasnije je da moramo nešto pod hitnom učiniti i nadam se da ćemo i hoćemo to uraditi, jer inače naša djeca bi imali non stop ovakvih natpisima ispred škole, vrtiće i tako dalje. Having been always a good timekeeper, I feel that today I failed. That's why I'm going to really move quickly forward to the last panel before lunch. I'm really happy to see here in Zagreb again Ari Mittelman, who is the author of a great book. We presented this as EJA with MEP Zagreb Jasenovac in the European Parliament last January. It's The Path of the Righteous. There are the stories of non-Jews, actually, who have been involved in the Jewish cause one way or another. So Ari is going to quickly walk you through the book, and then we're going to start discussing about education. After lunch, we will continue eventually discussing. It's a never-ending story. So for the time being, I would like to call Ari, and we will continue with the discussion later on. Ari.
Didn't get my email. Well, good afternoon. We're already in the afternoon. I'm going to say three things I learned from my rabbi when I was a boy growing up in Pennsylvania and the United States. Number one, when you're standing in the way of lunch, talk very, very shortly. And I think it's a very, very good Kiddush outside. Number two, on a serious note, I'm reminded of the words from Yehuda Halevi. I think we have some people from the Iberian Peninsula here. He's from Spain in the 11th century. He said, "My heart is in the east, but I'm in the west." And we're all obviously thinking about what's happening in Eretz Yisrael now. And then number three, the first phrase I learned as a kindergartner was Kol Yisrael Arvim Zel Lezeh. And I'm reminded of that this morning, that all of Israel is responsible for one another. So even before this horrible weekend, the synagogues in my home community, and I live right outside Washington, D.C., in the state of Maryland, they have more security than the banks in our community. And I think our friends in Europe certainly are aware of that. I also want to mention that our dear friend, Dr. Primoratz, and I, we share something in common. His daughter has a degree from University of Pennsylvania. I have a degree from University of Pennsylvania, separated by a few years, different degrees. But I mention that because just last month in September, at the very start of the semester, at a campus that was founded by Benjamin Franklin, horrible, despicable anti-Semitism that I don't want to talk about. You can Google University of Pennsylvania and anti-Semitism, and you'll see that that's what welcomed students to that historic campus. I mention this because this month, October, is a particularly difficult month for those of us from Pennsylvania. 5 years ago in October, the world saw the tragedy that happened in Pittsburgh. And we see again, just a horrible, horrible massacre. The last 5 years, let's be honest, since Pittsburgh have been very difficult for Jews in the United States. This extends beyond Pittsburgh. I did not set out to write a book. My book came about actually after a trip I was very much looking forward to after that very dark period of Pittsburgh. I went to Israel with my wife over the holiday of Pesach, over Passover. If you haven't been to Israel on Passover, it's a whole different Pesach experience. But folks, remember in May of 2019, April 2019, that horrible, horrible day in San Diego, this time 5,000 kilometers away from Pittsburgh, another synagogue, this time in California, was attacked on the last day. So that's why I wrote the book. I was looking for hope. As we're here in Croatia, I'm reminded of our first Catholic president, President John F. Kennedy, who overcame a lot of anti-religious bias, became the president in 1960, and he would often say, "We're not here to curse the darkness, but we're here to light a candle." I'll repeat that. We're not here to curse the darkness, but we're here to light a candle. So it's been very dark in recent years. We've had a robust conversation about that, but I think it's important to look forward and to look to some positive lights, and that's really the essence of the book. And I was so honored to be there in Strasbourg, organized by this great organization, to meet with folks from all over the European Union, Jewish and non-Jewish. The book profiles in very fast-paced stories, as I'm talking very fastly, 8 non-Jews, some from the United States, some from Croatia, some from elsewhere in the world, black and white, diverse individuals who stood up and spoken out for our community and for the state of Israel. I think it's very natural to look inward during times like this, to look to our rabbis for advice. I think the Rebbeim, by the way, they're very smart. They're outside. They're already having lunch. But it's common to turn inward. We're strongest, though, I think, as Jews when we're united and we adhere and we listen to the prophet Isaiah, that Yeshayahu said we should be a light unto the nations. And that's when we can rise to the occasion. We can show the world really what it means to be a light unto the nations. So I'll end with this. The title of the book, Paths of the Righteous, it comes from a verse from the Proverbs, from the book of Mishlei. And those of us that know our Bible, we know that the author was King Solomon, the architect of Jerusalem, as we're all thinking about Jerusalem now. And the verse is this: the path of the righteous is like the light of dawn. It shines ever brighter until the day is perfect. So look, the truth is, I have no idea, I don't think any of us have any idea what perfect means for the Jewish community. I can guarantee, though, that there are going to be more dark periods in the coming days and months. But I do think that the incredible people that are gathered here, the 8 individuals that inspired me in this book, including Dr. Primorac, I think that they have a little bit of the hidden secret of how to make it a little less dark and a little more light. Thank you, thank you.
Thanks, Ari. I just saw your mail, by the way. So I think it was a really great introduction to what is supposed to follow. If you agree, and because we are a little bit running late, and with the agreement also of our next panelists, I would invite you for lunch now, and we resume with the panel about the importance of education right after lunch, so that we won't keep you waiting. I think you deserve a very nice lunch, and we can resume in 45 minutes, around 2 o'clock. Thank you very much.